akan 16 items have
Kerana abang tandang menua pusing, korban diingat bukan yang mereka.
Terutama di madah kecaranya.
and we can see
Salam sejahtera.
Warnailah hidupmu, tampilkanlah bakat baru. Sarawak pasti maju, menginspirasi duniamu.
Hi, I'm Declan. I play Steven Seagat, and don't forget to catch Tili Tili Cinta on TVS channel 122 Astro and My TV.
Live from our studio in Kuching, Sarawak, this is TVS Nightline. You're with me, Douglas Elliott, and this is our top story. Given that the COVID-19 pandemic situation in Malaysia has gradually improved, and considering the strong demands from families and travellers eager to kick off the tourism sector, Prime Minister Ismail Sabri announced that the government has agreed to permit individuals who have completed their COVID-19 vaccination for interstate travel without needing to obtain police permits beginning today. However, entry into Sarawak still requires a few conditions, which could be a hindrance to travellers.
Among the requirements are travellers must apply for ENTERSARAWAK through SDMC's website and to take a COVID-19 RT-PCR or antigen test 3 days prior to departure. According to the Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Datuk Seri Abdul Karim Rahman Hamzah, he agrees with the Prime Minister's decision and reiterated that Sarawak should follow the federal government's decision to allow people who have completed 2 doses of vaccine travel freely to any state without any special conditions.
I'm very happy to hear that the Prime Minister has announced that the interstate travel restriction or permit where you need to go to the police station to get that permit to go interstate has been uplifted from today, if I'm not mistaken. I'm very happy for that.
However, the minister is unhappy that Sarawak still requires an entry permit, and such thing will be an obstacle for individuals who want to enter Sarawak, which could be a downfall to Sarawak's tourism sector.
What I can say, any form of restriction is a hindrance. Any form of restriction is a hindrance to tourism. With the uplifting of the police permit to enter Sarawak, that is also a welcoming news. But I'm still not happy with that other permit which Sarawak government is putting to enter Sarawak. I don't see the basis of it. The police has already uplifted that part. Why do we need to still have that permit to enter Sarawak? Just put down there, as long as you have got 2 vaccinations. You go to UK, you don't need all this. What they want to do, ask from you is, have you get your 2 vaccinations? Show us. You'll be free to enter. You don't have to apply for the permit. Now also Malaysian government, you want to travel overseas, the My Travel Pass has already been put aside. Why is Sarawak still putting all these conditions? Or maybe somebody in Sarawak just don't like our tourism to boost up. Nobody would want to come to Sarawak if they have to keep on putting all these clearances.
He said this at a media conference after launching the D-Drift 2021 program.
Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Abdul Karim Rahman Hamzah believes that Undi 18 will be implemented just in time. He added that this allowed age 18 to 21 to vote in the upcoming 12th state election.
Not to worry about the 18 years old and above voting, As it is, the next PRN, I believe, that one will be applicable already. The 18 years old is applicable because the automatic registration is ongoing. I even checked for my son, who is 18 years old. His name is already inside there. It's the question of when SPR wanted to gazette the date.
He, who is also the party Pusaka Bumi Putra vice president, said the latest electoral roll released by the Election Commission was up to September 2021. The Asajaya assemblyman added there has been an increase of more than 5,000 voters in his constituency. On the dissolutions of the Sarawak Legislative Assembly doomed to pave the way for PRN 12, he noted Sarawak is currently under the emergency ordinance until February 1st, 2022.
Domestic flight ticketing prices between Peninsula and East Malaysia are expected to return to its standard rate following the increase of flight frequencies. Deputy Transport Minister Dato' Henry Sum Agung said the government would continue to monitor the prices for all domestic routes through the Malaysian Aviation Commission or MAVCOM.
The minister said the high flight ticket prices were determined by dynamic pricing and cross-subsidization concept, in which factors such as flight capacity limit by the Sarawak government, which was part of the state government's efforts to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic.
Pada ketika itu, kekerapan penerbangan ke Sarawak telah berkurangan sebanyak 94% berbanding semasa tempoh sebelum wabak COVID-19. Manakala bagi penerbangan di antara Semenanjung dan Sabah, kekerapan penerbangan telah berkurangan sebanyak 89% berbanding semasa tempoh sebelum wabak COVID-19.
Meanwhile, Deputy Chief Minister Dato' Amar Awang Tengah has been appointed as the Minister in charge of Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, East ASEAN Growth Area or BIMP-EAGA representing Sarawak State Government. Awang Tengah attended the virtual meeting, which, among others, discussed the progress of the cross-border power interconnection project between Sarawak and West Kalimantan, Sabah and North Kalimantan. 8 clusters of economic sectors were transpired during the 24th BIMP-EAGA ministerial meeting. The sectors are namely transport, trade and investment, power and energy infrastructure, and agribusiness. BIMP-EAGA is a regional cooperation established on 24th March 1994 with the objective to drive the socio-economic growth of the eastern regions of ASEAN, which include Sarawak, Sabah and Labuan for Malaysia, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, Maluku and Irian Jaya for Indonesia, Mindanao and Palawan for the Philippines, and Brunei Darussalam. The meeting between the 4 countries was also attended by Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Dato' Sri Mustafa Muhammad, as Malaysian head of delegation. And efforts would be intensified to introduce modern farming methods such as fertigation and hydroponic to the people. For this, the state government has set an allocation of 60 million ringgit to pepper and oil palm farmers plagued by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Deputy Chief Minister Dato' Amar Douglas Ugama said the fund is to be used as fertilizer assistance. Uga, who is also the Minister of Agriculture Modernisation, Native Land and Regional Development, said the COVID-19 situation had forced many agricultural activities of the government to be put on hold. He hoped that with the assistance, it will help the farmers to get back on their feet.
In the excitement of resuming economic activities, it is the responsibility of all parties, be it employers or employees, to ensure safety and health aspects are top priority. The dangers posed at workplaces are getting more challenging. Not just tangible risk, but infectious diseases like COVID-19, which is intangible, could also cause accidents.
The National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, is reminding employers and employees to abide by existing laws and regulation on safety and health. Its chairman, Dr. Wilson Uga Kambong, in a statement said this in order to reduce the rate of accidents and occupational disease at workplaces. He said negligence and the attitude of taking things lightly were among the factors which led to workplace accidents. Uga said it is a shared responsibility for all employers and employees to follow the existing laws and regulations with regards to workplace safety and health.
And a total of 4,471 cases of missing children aged 18 and below were reported from 2017 to September 1st of this year. First Deputy Home Minister Dato' Sri Ismail Mohamad told Dewan Rakyat that of the figures, 4,399 children had been found while 72 others remain missing.
Meanwhile, for the cases of missing persons aged 18 and above, he said a total of 6,074 cases were reported in the same period, with 4,871 found, while 1,203 people were still missing. Ismail said among the measures taken by the government to address this problem is to create a missing children portal. The information displayed on the portal can be accessed by the public and provides an opportunity for the community to work together to track down missing children more quickly and effectively. Ismail said the police have also collaborated with 40 other agencies through the Noor Alert, which is an early warning system for missing child cases to assist law enforcement agencies conduct investigation and lead to speedy arrest. Ismail said based on police investigations, some of the reasons for the children to dwell on such acts were due to family problems, seeking more freedom, depression, mental issues, or being involved in crime. There were also those who went missing after family misunderstandings, debts, and also due to physical or mental abuse.
Roti Chana wasn't enough for a 40-year-old woman in Muka who supplemented her income as a drug pusher. The suspect was arrested on Sunday along Jalan Selangor Bintulu at 5:45 p.m. Police found narcotics of 51.60 grams of crystalline substance believed to be methamphetamine in her sling bag.
Muka District Police Chief Deputy Superintendent Muhammad Rizal Alias said an inspections on the suspect's vehicle found a slim bag containing several translucent packages. A further investigation found that the translucent packages contain crystallized substance suspected to be methamphetamine weighing 51.6 grams with an estimated value of 5,160 ringgit. A urine screening being done on the suspect also found the suspect to be positive of amphetamine. Initial investigation done by the police found that the suspect has been involved with dealing and using drugs since 2010. The case is being investigated under Section 39B of the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952, which carries mandatory death sentence if convicted.
Meanwhile, in Surian, a body of a 39-year-old man was found by members of the public in a storm drain. The body was discovered at around 3:30 p.m. in the End area along Jalan Chunghua. The body was believed to be a victim of a single vehicle collision from where the motorcycle was found within the vicinity from the site of impact. It is understood that the victim was headed towards Jalan Chunghua from the Jalan Surian bypass. The body was later brought to Surian Hospital for further action. The case is being investigated under Section 41(1) of the Road Transport Act 1987.
Sarawak Pay merupakan sebuah aplikasi dompet elektronik atau e-dompet yang semakin popular kini kerana ia adalah pantas, selamat dan mudah untuk digunakan. Sarawak Pay memudahkan pembayaran tanpa perlu mengeluarkan wang tunai. E-dompet ini dijamin selamat kerana ia diselia oleh Bank Negara Malaysia. Ia bukan sahaja e-dompet pertama di Sarawak, tetapi juga e-dompet pertama yang dilaksanakan di Malaysia oleh sebuah kerajaan negeri. Penggunaan e-dompet dijangka akan menjadi pembangkit keuangan pada masa depan dari segi pengurusan wang serta transaksi yang selamat dan pantas. Inisiatif ini merupakan salah satu langkah strategik bagi memacu Sarawak ke arah ekonomi digital.
Welcome back. Malaysia's new COVID-19 infections dropped further to 6,709 cases today from 7,373 cases recorded yesterday, the lowest daily figure reported since July 5, 2021, when 6,387 cases were reported. This brings the cumulative number of infections to 2,345,303.
Meanwhile, the Health Ministry has identified 9 new COVID-19 clusters, bringing the active numbers to 794. Of the clusters reported, 4 involved communities, 2 linked to workplaces, 2 high-risk groups, and 1 education cluster. In Sarawak, 1,037 new infections were reported today, bringing the cumulative number to 225,676. At the same time, Kuching district cases dropped below 200 for the first time in 2 months, at 191 cases today. The last time Kuching had registered less than 200 cases was on August 2nd with 144 cases. The number of COVID-19 fatalities today reported at 12 cases, soon breaching the 1,000 mark. The cases, which recorded between October 4th to 9th, brings the state's death toll to 999. The victims were aged between 50 and 83, where no brought-in death cases were recorded today. Meanwhile, no new cluster emerged today and 5 clusters has ended. The clusters are Kampung Kakeng in Serian, Sungai Kerubong in Serikei, Sungai Sujan Mapo in Sebau, Sungai Dabai in Pakan, and Laman Bong Chin in Kuching. No new infections reported there in the past 28 days, bringing the total active cluster in the state with 67, as 2 of them recorded 10 new infections.
And as testing for the COVID-19 continues to scale up, RT-PCR or swab test remains the preferred indicator for infection rather than the saliva samples used on the widely available lateral flow test kit. And as such, RT-PCR test is critical to meet the diagnostic standards despite its limitation in terms of its turnaround time. In some countries, the RT-PCR would be the standard test and the rapid antigen test would be used in select situations as the vaccine overall coverage have improved. However, for individuals that have symptoms and are suspected to be infected, it is advisable for them to undergo the RT-PCR to confirm the test.
This saliva test, rapid test, is just a test for coronavirus. Coronavirus has many types. Okay, so many types. And then one of it is COVID-19. Which is causing the pandemic now. So if you are positive, it does not mean that you have COVID-19. So that's why if you are positive, you go for your PCR. PCR is specific for COVID-19.
Dr. Jerip, who is a medical practitioner, urged the public to have an awareness to monitor and ensure one's selves are free from the COVID-19. That can be done using the COVID-19 self-test kit.
Jadi the RT test is also a very important tool for us to monitor ourselves at home. Maknanya kalau kita quarantine atau kita mendedahkan kita kepada direct case, it's better for us to do our test kit. Now we notice that for any major function within the government, everyone should do RTK because we don't want that to. So before you do that, very fast, you take a test kit sebelum masuk ke majlis. Then if you are negative, you go in. If you are positive, you go away. That is one safety measure for us in the new norm masa endemicity ini juga.
Widespread use of saliva sampling through the antigen test kit have become transformative for public health efforts and requires less resources, which is an appealing alternative even for symptomatic patients to detect and isolate themselves quickly, as RT-PCR tests takes time to get the result, and people who wait for the result from the certified lab are unlikely to observe the quarantine rules, hence increasing the chances of spreading.
To attract local workers to work in the agriculture and plantation sectors and to reduce dependence on foreign labour, the Malaysian government has decided not to adopt Australia's farm labour visa as it is geared towards offering permanent residency. Under the Malaysianisation program, employees are eligible to receive an additional incentive of 500 ringgit or 20% of their monthly salary.
Deputy Human Resources Minister Dr. Awang Hashim said Malaysia had been informed of the introductions of the scheme by Australian High Commissioner to Malaysia, Dr. Justin Lee. Australia and Malaysia face the same problem, namely a lack of manpower that resulted in the high dependence on foreign labour in the plantation sector. The scheme introduced by Australia is expected to provide employment opportunities for migrant workers to work for 3 years in the sector at the country. On the Malaysianisation program, Awang said eligibility limit for this incentive has been set for employee with salaries at a minimum level of 1,500 ringgit. Therefore, Awang reminded employers not to take advantage and abuse the program to lower employees' salaries and expect the government to bear the rest. Awang stressed employees can lodge a complaint on the Working for Workers portal of such misconduct takes place.
Even during the pandemic, facing logistical problems due to MCO, Malaysia's furniture industry remains stable in terms of export value. Therefore, the nation's wooden furniture exports are projected to rise more than 13 billion ringgit in value this year from 12.8 billion ringgit recorded in 2020.
Minister of Plantation, Industries and Commodities, Dato' Zuraida Kamaruddin said the target is achievable since the country's furniture industry chalked up commendable sales in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. Zuraida said for the first 8 months of 2021, the country's furniture export value hit 6.6 billion ringgit, up 5.2% from 6.2 billion ringgit in last year's corresponding period. She said the export potentials is very high as the US is the main export market, which accounts for nearly 50%. Although Malaysia have competitions from Vietnam, the Americans still regard Malaysia as the supplier of high quality and stylish furniture that suits their taste.
Meanwhile, Malaysia's end September palm oil stocks fell more sharply than expected, even as export demand surged while production stayed flat. Data by the Palm Oil Board showed supporting prices that are already trading near all-time high.
Data from the Malaysian Palm Oil Board (MPOB) showed inventories dropped 6.99% from the previous month to 1.75 million tons, falling from a 14th-month peak. Crude palm oil production failed to sustain the growth in August as the labour shortage hammered output during the peak production season. September production shrank 0.39% to 1.7 million tons. Exports surged 36.83% or 1.6 million tons, the highest level this year, while imports fell nearly 18%.
And Brunei heightened its curfew, dubbed the OPERASI PULIH, to curb the virus from spreading after the Sultanate recorded its highest ever daily COVID-19 cases with 381 infections on Sunday. Our correspondent in Brunei, Paula Malay Ali, has the reports.
It's been a week now since the Ministry of Health of Brunei Darussalam imposed OPERASI PULIH, a curfew from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. aimed at keeping people at home unless they are frontliners or it's declared an emergency. As of now, 209 compound fines have been issued for those who breached this rule. And it's a continuing battle with yesterday's tally bringing in a record high of 381 new cases in a single day. And the majority of these are close contacts or positive cases, whilst the remaining is still being investigated. The largest active clusters have been found in confined settings such as dormitories, staff housing, offshore oil rigs and prisons. Under a new initiative, Sweep and Swab, the ministry has been taking very productive measures with the aim of detecting cases early through these weekly surveillance operations in high-density areas. Health Minister Yang Berhormat Dato' Dr. Haji Muhammad Isham Haji Jaafar expressed his frustration during the latest press conference, stating that there are still people going out unnecessarily, visiting relatives, participating in recreational sport, all seemingly innocuous, but nonetheless very irresponsible given our small population and this very high rate of transmission. And in terms of Brunei, the onus is on managing self-regulation, stay home, get vaccinated, and simply follow the SOPs and the procedures. Now, before August the 7th, with a detection of 7 cases, Brunei enjoyed a record of 457 days with no community infections. And there are currently 2,226 active cases being treated over at the National Isolation Centre. And as we come into the second week of OPERASI PULIH and controlled movements, it's said that this operation may take time to yield results, the earliest being at the end of this week. Paula Malay Ali, TVS, Brunei.
Awak jom pergi salon. Tengah makan lah ni.
Apa kecoh-kecoh tu? Tak boleh nak berhenti makan lah.
Bukan kau cakap nak diet ke?
Sakit kepala. Nak jumpa doktor. Gayat lah.
Kucing pun gayat ke?
Malas nak layan.
Pusak setiap Isnin 1.45 petang hanya di TVS saluran 122 Astro dan My TV. Jumpa di sana.
Saya berharap boleh memberi inspirasi terutamanya kepada komuniti Dayak. Saya ingin memberi kesedaran kepada mereka. Tidak banyak yang sebenarnya kaum Iban yang aktif dalam bidang penyiaran. Saya ingin membuka mata, membuka hati mereka bahawa bidang penyiaran, bidang komunikasi ini adalah sesuatu kerjaya juga, seperti bidang-bidang lain.
Thank you for staying with us. A fire broke out on Monday at a fuel shortage tank in the Zahrani oil facility in southern Lebanon. Lebanese army was evacuating the region amid fears that the fire would spread and cause an explosion as firefighters attempted to control the blaze. The fire is the latest disaster to hit Lebanon, where fuel shortages amid a deep economic crisis forced the country's two biggest power plants, one in Zahrani and the other one in Deir Ammar, to shut down on Saturday. This brings the already straining power network to a complete halt. The Lebanese Prime Minister's office announced the fire had been contained. Lebanon is in the throes of an economic meltdown dubbed by the World Bank as one of the deepest depressions of modern history. 3/4 of its population have been plunged into poverty, and the currency has lost 90% of its value in the past 2 years. And in Down Under, Sydney's cafes, gyms and restaurants welcomed back fully vaccinated customers on Monday after nearly 4 months of lockdown. And this comes as Australia aims to live with COVID-19 virus and gradually reopen the country.
Today is a day so many have been looking forward to. The day when the things we take for granted we'll celebrate. Being with family and friends, getting a haircut, grabbing a meal together, going to the pub and having a beer with your mates. These are things that across New South Wales and particularly in Sydney people will be able to do again today. And I know all around the country that will be true, particularly in Victoria and here in the ACT.
Calling it Freedom Day, New South Wales State Premier Dominic Perrottet told reporters in Sydney the state needs to learn to live alongside the virus.
I think there's going to be challenges. Case numbers will increase, hospitalisation rates will increase because mobility is increasing as we open up. But we can't stay closed. We can't stay closed. We need to learn to live alongside the virus. I know everyone's been saying it, but today New South Wales is the first state to be doing just that. We are leading the nation out of this pandemic. This will be a challenge.
Perrottet has declared an end to lockdowns in New South Wales and has strong support for reopening in Sydney, where more than 5 million residents endured severe restrictions from mid-June following an outbreak of the highly infectious Delta variant. And finally, scientists at Japan's Osaka University are using 3D printers to create what would they hope could be a more sustainable alternative to the country's famous Wagyu beef. The move could also help in addressing food and protein shortages in the future. The lab-grown meat has largely been minced, but researchers are aiming to replicate the high marble content of Wagyu, which sets it apart from the other types of beef.
Professor Michiya Matsusaki and his research team first extracted bovine cells from Japanese black cows and then used a 3D bioprinter to create individual muscle, blood vessel and fat fibers, which they manually pieced the fibers together to create the meat.
筋肉、脂肪と血管をそれぞれプリントでファイバー状に構成しまして、で後でそれをですね、その設計図となる肉の組織学的な構造を見ながらですね、再構築していけば、肉の構造が出来上がるんじゃないかというふうに考えたということになります。
It currently takes up to 4 weeks to generate a cubic centimeter of Wagyu at a cost of approximately 370 ringgit. Matsusaki said once the process is refined and automated, the meat could be mass-produced within 5 years, which would bring down the cost. He said by developing meat from just a few cells, he hoped his Wagyu could one day help address food shortage issues. He also believes the technology could one day be applied to regenerative medicine.
今回牛の細胞を使いまして、3種類の 脂肪と血管と筋肉という繊維構造を作ってそれを集めて、肉のですね、簡単な模擬的な構造を作ることができたということになります。ですので、それを今度は人の細胞に置き換えることで、人の筋肉、大腿筋とかですね、欠損した場所にそういう筋肉を移植をしていくということができるようになるんじゃないかということを期待して今研究を進めているところです。
And that's all the time we have for Nightline. You can find the latest news on our website at TVSTVMY or follow us on our social media. Once again, I'm Douglas Elliott. Good night and till then.
Akan 16 items have been